One.
And cookies,
Raw.
milk and cookies, leave them by the Christmas tree.
To the FDA.
Raw. 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 Don't forget about Karen. That's it.
Maybe.
FDA. Raw. Hey.
Raw.
Raw. Raw. Raw. Raw.
The FDA.
Raw. Raw. Raw.
Parents.
Don't forget about the Karens.
To the FDA.
Raw. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Woo yeah. Raw. Raw. Raw.
Wow, folks, what was that? Hey, welcome into the Farm to Table Direct Show. And as you heard, milk and cookies. And you might be asking yourself, what does that have to do with
tonight's show.
with tonight's show and
And
the Rogue Food Conference?
so you're gonna have to wait
Yeah,
kind of toward the middle and maybe even
Yeah,
toward
you
the end
know,
to find out
yeah.
exactly what it means.
just hang tight and promise we will explain.
Well, and it puts us in the Christmas spirit.
All right. I mean, it's
Nothing
getting a
wrong
little
with
early
that,
start, but hey, that's all right. Never,
Yeah.
never too early to be in the Christmas spirit, I guess.
Yeah. So I just understood that after Thanksgiving, we're actually having I call it Dirty Santa.
Yeah, white
And
elephant,
the
dirty
white
Santa,
elephant thing
yeah.
on the very next day. And my wife didn't really understand that was when all of that's going to happen. So as soon as she found out, boom, I mean, it's seriously in one day, I've got 3 Christmas
I
trees
seen
up.
that one.
I've got decorations galore everywhere getting ready for the Christmas holiday. And then with that is food,
Oh,
right?
Yummy.
Lots of good, yummy food. So,
yes,
so what we're getting into tonight is the Rogue Food Conference. So how appropriate to
I mean-
start with that. And like I said, stick around to understand what raw milk and cookies actually has to do with tonight's show. Yes, I didn't say just cookies, milk and cookies.
raw milk and cookies. That's right. Well, I tell you, folks, it was a whirlwind of a trip down to
Yeah.
Dallas. I guess that's been it's been over a week now, just over a week. Saturday that was the 9th. Yeah, we traveled. I left my house at right about 4 a.m. and swung over here. We jumped in the vehicle and headed to Dallas, and I got back in my house at midnight. So,
Yeah, it was. But let me tell you this: it was well worth it.
oh, absolutely. Worth it.
I was just kind of blown away by all the information that we learned, and just even understanding what is the Rogue Food Conference to begin with.
Well, right. And I think that's, kind of, I guess we ought to set that up. What Rogue Food
Yeah.
Conference is. I mean, that's something that Joel Salatin, along with John Moody, have put together. They hosted it at different places at different times. But really, what it is set up is to inform and equip
Well,
individuals,
farmers.
farmers, producers, business owners, restaurant owners,
yeah,
farm hub people, pretty much anybody, and including, every aspect of what we do in homesteading, what we do in farming, and the whole community, but to equip them with understanding of government regulation, of over-regulation,
right.
how to work within that. And there's so much, so much in that short amount of time we were there. We were just there for one day, and it was 2 full days of actual conference. And we were there for one day of it, and it was an overwhelming amount of information. And in fact, I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's more than we could possibly really break down honestly and cover honestly in a 45-minute to an
Right.
hour.
We were actually struggling almost till the last minute before we pushed
right.
record about whether we were going to try to cover the whole thing or if we were going to break it down and segment it out over 2 to 3 shows, maybe
Right.
3 shows anyway.
And
And last minute, we kind of made that decision that we are going to break this down. And I guess with that being said,
Hey.
Okay, first I just want to start out. I just want to start out by saying, if you grow a carrot in your backyard,
Ooh.
if you grow a carrot in your backyard,
right.
don't you think you should have a right to eat it without any interference?
I would think so.
Yeah,
I mean, I would think that if I grew
right. And you might say, "Oh, Keith, we can grow carrots in our backyard. Don't be ridiculous." Well, not everywhere.
well, exactly, and for lots of reasons.
Right.
I mean, and this can get into seeding and what's in your area. This overregulation of local governments, the dreaded HOA.
Yes, HOAs. And I just recently heard a nightmare story about an HOA situation in Kissimmee, Florida. I don't know if
Kissimmee St.
anybody,
Cloud.
and just a little shout out to the Macs,
Right.
but Miss Mac, but they're really, what's their last name?
it,
Mac.
is it McMillan? It ain't McMillan.
No,
I feel bad,
anyway.
guys. We're sorry. I just call them the Max. It's just Kobe and Misty.
Misty. But anyway, Misty was telling about a nightmare story to where they got down there with a little trailer, and the HOA, the people that owned the house, said, "You can't have that here." It was just a little trailer that they had with them. You can't park that here. Anyway, it turned into a nightmare story.
Wow.
But anyway, this is overreaching stuff, and it's more of this regulatory idea or this
Right.
regulatory attitude that, for our safety.
Right.
Just want to welcome in Red Feather Farms. Dwayne is
What's up,
over there.
Dwayne?
And so I'm glad you joined us tonight, Dwayne. I'll tell you why, because this is a topic that is about a conversation that you had with Ryan, too. It will address some of what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So anybody, if anybody's out there in the chat, this is a live chat event. So if you've got any questions or if you got a statement or a comment that you want to make, leave it over there in the chat because, we want to try to get around to it and to make this an interactive program.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
Because and we can't think of everything on our own, even though we try.
Right. So back to Rogue
Rogue Food.
Food Conference.
Right.
We couldn't do it all, so we chose a topic tonight.
Right.
And tonight's topic is going to be on crucible of circumvention.
Right. And that's a key word. That was a key part of the entire conference, was this idea of circumvention. It's not breaking the law. It's not doing what it's finding ways around
To work around.
to work.
It's a
just-
workaround overreaching regulations to be able to eat, drink, put whatever you want to in your body. But not
Right.
only that, but two, if your neighbor, if you have consent between two people, that you can actually share your products
Right.
with other people who want to eat it because they know you, they know where it comes
Right.
from, they know all of that. And
And-
so,
And that's the, that's that freedom of consent. We've talked, me and you talked a lot of this week about consent, but
mhm,
something that Joel said was movement begins with a crucible of circumvention and the exercise of conviction.
right,
That was his quote to that. And movements are often born out of intense trials or
Right.
crucibles. And it's where adversity pushes us to find an alternative path to our goals.
Now I had to break that down because I wasn't sure exactly even how I felt about the
Right.
things that were being said there, right?
Right.
And I thought, have I become radical?
We didn't think so, but then at the same token, when you get in a room full of
Right,
like-minded individuals and, you kind of start thinking about your viewpoints of overregulation, deregulation, et cetera, it does kind of put you in that category, whether you ever felt that way about yourself or not.
right.
You know?
And so, when we're thinking about this, I had to break it down.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I even went out to the dictionary, went out to Google, and I Google searched exactly what crucible was. Now I knew that what a crucible was from where you might be putting gold or silver and kind of purifying it and
Mhm.
and turning it into ingots or whatever they turn it into, and so that's a crucible,
Right.
right? And so whenever you say terminology like crucible of circumvention,
Right.
what kind of connotation did that have?
I mean, I know when he first said it, when he first said that quote, it was kind of like, because of being a Marine and going through that there, and it wasn't what they called it when I went in, because I'm an old head, but yeah, Dwayne, depends on the crowd. You're right.
All right.
But they've since titled this end of boot camp thing you have to go through. It's testing, it's trial, stuff like that, but they've nicknamed it the Crucible. And it's a period of like 24 hours. It's all this stuff you have to do. It's designed to test and measure how have these recruits, have these trainees become what they were supposed to. And it's that final test, and they go through this crucible. So when I heard that, my instant thing was pain, testing, pushing, seeing, putting yourself in an uncomfortable place. And so out of that adversity, can you overcome? Can you
Right.
reach inside of yourself to find that extra thing that makes you push forward in spite of the pain, in spite of the odds, and what's coming against you? Can you persevere, and can you push ahead, and will you keep going? And that's
So it's
where
a trial by fire,
it
really.
is. But that's also where conviction comes in.
The conviction of it.
Because
Mhm.
if you go into a crucible or a trial, but you're not rooted deeply in your conviction, you'll wilt, you'll fade.
Right.
And I think that, so that was what my understanding of it is. And so when he said it, it kind of hit a point that, listen, sometimes it takes us being in the fire, it takes us going through some stuff to find out
Right.
where we're at.
So why, I guess, are we really at that stage to where we have to have a crucible? I know that Joel Salatin
Mhm.
and a lot of the people that was at the Rogue Food Conference, they're already in that place that they recognize that they're being tested because, and let's just talk a little bit about this. And that is that when you look at what's going on around the world and overreaching government regulation, I got to wake up Dakota over there.
I know,
Are you
right?
awake over there, brother?
Mr. P, are you awake? Are you sure? Just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah, I want.
No.
So whenever we see what's going on around the world,
Right.
some people have reached the conclusion that there are people who are actors who want to centralize control over what we eat.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I know that there may be those who haven't uh, reached that, or maybe they've not really just looked at it. And I mean, it's not, it just is. We were at a point ourselves. Everybody is at a point somewhere.
Right.
Now, uh, Joel, his is family rooted. It's generational. They dealt with things, long before most of us here had any problems.
Hmm.
But so for him, it's almost heritage as well. So he's fully aware. But when we listened to some of the stories that were shared down there of things that people went through with government regulators, inspectors, HOAs, all these different, local governments coming in, and one of my favorite, when the stories that Joe was talking about was, the regulation didn't change, their interpretation changed.
Their interpretation of regulation changed.
So what do you do there? I
Right.
mean, honestly, and it's so when so they're already there, and yeah, it does. I think, we can have, I think, beliefs, convictions, and stuff like that, and be ready to go. But I mean, again, it's there. But when the system fails to serve justice, when it fails to serve the people, how do the righteous, how do those affect, how do we respond? Because history has shown us if we don't, then there won't be anything to respond to later. I mean, it puts us in a position that if we don't speak, or if we don't, they have the old stand your ground law, which has
Mhm.
something total different connotation, but
Right.
there is that, where is the line in the sand for each individual? And each person has to make that decision for themselves. It can't be me deciding for you or me deciding for Mr. P over there. It's got to be a personal decision. And I think that, those who have already been through the fights with the regulators, already been through the testing, and I know some of the ones who are going through it now, or they're facing possibilities of things that may totally change how they do things because a particular organization that's involved in the regulation or the licensing or that type of thing is suddenly having a change of opinion or a change of interpretation. And what
Right.
are they going to do? And I mean,
Right.
go ahead and highlight that comment. I know I seen you get.
Yeah, and well, before I do that, I want to just shout out to Michelle
Right.
and Monty.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah,
thank him for
absolutely.
joining us tonight.
Red Dirt
and-
Rooster Road.
And we will. We hope you guys will stick around
Absolutely.
for this, because I mean, it really is an important topic that affects us, and it's not even unrelated to what's going on. I don't know how closely you guys pay attention to the
Right.
news and what's happening right now. Being on the edge of possible WW3 again,
No kidding,
and
right.
and and people doing
Yeah.
things that just don't make sense to
Right.
us. But anyway, I'm going to go over here and welcome Chris in and kind of get
Right. Yeah.
approach his topic over here. It says, so what are your thoughts about Joel being an advisor to the USDA? Do you think he will be able to make changes, or do you think the USDA is too far gone? And that is a good question. And I think a lot of people, have that question,
Right.
is it impossible? Listen, whether it's possible or whether it's not possible, what I have to say about that is we've got to do something.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We can't stand around. And right now, the way that I see that the cabinets are being set up and all the people that will be in his administration, they're very well selected for a general or for a specific purpose. And I can't think of anybody that would be a better advisor,
Oh, absolutely.
in the USDA than Joel Salatin.
100%.
All right. He's been there. He is, and what we're talking about tonight is the crucible of circumvention. And he has been in that crucible
Oh,
and had to
absolutely.
find ways to work
And
around
has
the regulations.
gotten pretty good at it, actually.
Right.
But
Mhm.
Chris, to go ahead and kind of give my 2 cents on this. I think it's great. It's one of 6 advisors to that. Now that is all. I mean, I know he's been reached out by the Trump transition team, and they're, it's been discussions, and that's what he told us at the conference was, hey, it's discussion. I've been approached. This is where we're at. Don't read any more into it at this point,
Right.
because a lot of it really does depend on who President-elect Trump's pick for the USDA secretary is.
Right.
Who gets that job? Now, the leaning favorite, and certainly the one that Joel is pushing for, is Representative Massey from Kentucky.
Mhm.
He is a homesteader. He lives off grid.
Yep.
He's built a solar powered chicken mover.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's
this
pretty
guy's
cool.
super smart. He's in he's in the fight, if you will. He's a part of it, and he has a lot of great ideas. And I think he would be a great secretary. There are other people that have been rumored to be in potential running, and I think it's more hyperbole. It's more media push than it is actual realism, because the names I heard, and in fact I heard them from Joel on his blog, was not anybody you would want to be the Secretary of Agriculture. But if they get somebody like Massey, if that person, and I think Massey can work hand in hand with RFK Jr.
Mm-hmm.
at the Health and Human Services with the FDA and all that stuff, and those two can work hand in hand. If it carries through the DOGE commission, if that happens, if those three entities, along with President Trump and his people, can work hand in hand, I think you can see some major changes. From the top,
right,
and mainly getting them out of our way is really the push there. Is to get them out of our is not to overregulate or re-regulate or redecide, how to do things, but to free up people to make choices. I know that's Joel's thing. He wants America free again, free to make choices for themselves. In fact, he coined it on his blog, MAFA, M-A-F-A, Make America Free Again. Mm-hmm. Less government regulation, less government interference, more people's choice. To informed choice, but choice. And so that's really kind of where I think that's headed. So a lot of it really does depend on the next 90 days or so.
First, I'm going to go over here, back over to
yeah, absolutely.
There's a couple of things that I want to hit, but first I'm going to say to Chris, he said Massey would be a great pick. Yes. And whether you know or you don't know, but Massey was also a part of the Rogue Food Conference.
He was there on Friday. I believe.
Right.
And I would love to have heard what he had to say. I mean, I hated missing that one. But yeah, like I said, he's a homesteader. He's a farmer. He's, him and Joel and John Moody are close friends, so, I mean, it would definitely be somebody who thinks the way we think.
Yes, so, that's right. Now there was a couple of things. There was a keyword that came in from Red Feather Farms.
Absolutely.
Change will not happen unless folks initiate change. Now he mentioned change 2 times in this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to go back down here to our buddy Dwayne, who says we will never know unless we move to change. Now, the reason that's so important is because it's important to the title of what we're doing today.
Absolutely.
It's talking about the crucible
of circumvention.
And more specifically, we have to be willing to change.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got to be determined to change. Right. Now, you guys, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I know you guys, but we got a good win.
Oh, yeah.
And we got a mandate.
Yeah.
But the battle's not over.
Oh, no. We won a battle, not a war. And
that's it.
It's, John Moody said this: we haven't won, but we can.
That's right.
And he was, about the picks, about the cabinet, the next 90 days of confirmation, what the first 100 days of Trump's new administration, what that looks like. Mm-hmm. So much of that, but it did really come down to us. I mean,
right.
As great as it is, if we can get the big overreach out of the way from the federal, but real change happens in communities, in counties, in states. That's where the most impact that an individual can have is in their own neighborhood,
in the local,
in their own area, putting, county over country in that sense.
That's it.
And that was a quote from there. And,
Right. And John Moody, and I'm kind of skipping ahead. We're probably going to cover
Well, we'll
John
come
Moody
back.
on a different
Yeah,
level,
well, I've
but
got a
he was
whole-
talking about the row,
Yeah.
that we had to hoe.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way, or the trench?
We're
That's
in
what
trench
it is.
warfare.
We're in trench warfare, and we're just at the beginning of that
Right.
trench
And-
warfare, and we've got a long ways to go, and
Right.
so we have to accept
Right.
that in order to change, we have to,
Right.
be in the crucible of heat.
Well, right. We're going to feel it. I mean, and, until you're sitting there with that, that government regulator or, yes, Monty Michelle. Hey, Money Pitt, glad to see you in here, buddy. Yeah, Monty Michelle, the real battle is just starting.
That's right.
And until that regulator or that inspector or that licensing agent or whatever is standing in your front door or sitting in your living room or,
Right.
seizing your beef at the local processor, until they're telling you, we're taking your chickens, because you can't have them here.
Right.
You don't, not many of us probably won't have to face that because of where we live and because of the nature of things, but a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
They go in and they do something and the regulator says you can't do that here, and so they have to figure out, he's coming up with something, he's typing. I said at McAllister when we had the round table, that does, that round table was on. There was a lot discussed there, and a lot of the people at that round table are a big catalyst for change, particularly in the Oklahoma,
Right.
Area. But I want to get back on, kind of where we're at here. I mean, we're going to have to go through this. Government exists for two things, really. And it's one statement, but it's two things: to be a terror to evil and to encourage righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
But lately, they've become a terror to righteousness and encourage evil.
Right.
So what do we do when they fail and they risk becoming oppressors of the movement? Do we circumvent? How do we do that? When the protectors become persecutors, where does society turn? And what does that look like for us?
Are we there now? Let's
there?
start with that, because I think probably most people that's in our audience know that we are there.
Right.
We are there, but maybe they don't. Some of them out there don't realize we're already there. We got a great opportunity right in front of us.
Absolutely.
We've got the best chance of saving the Western civilization as we know it right now. The question is, will we do it?
Right.
Will we make that decision, and how far are we willing to go with that? Now, I have never been a radical. I've not even been an activist, but from the things that, suddenly I woke up one day whenever we were doing this show and I'm thinking, man,
Right.
maybe I'm an activist. And not because I had determined, hey, I'm going to be an activist and I'm going to go down and on Wall Street and do some big, activist rally or something.
Right.
But because of the things we see going on in the world, and especially as it relates to food and independence, and it has really brought me back to the idea of shopping local, and not just shopping local, but all of the things that I see that they're doing. Guys, they want to make us eat bugs, and that's not even a joke.
No.
I wish it was.
I wish it was, and haven't ate a bug. I'll pass. We'll go back and watch that short. That was hilarious. You talk about that, and you talk about local, and we're sitting here talking about when government, is encouraging evil, or government is, no longer the protector.
Yeah.
Right. And we look at, and I'm just going to go here. We look at local products. If I want to buy a beef from somebody local and they're not their food doesn't come from a USDA inspected facility.
Right.
I have to buy it as a quarter beef or a whole beef or a half beef. I'm buying it live so that it can be, and then I get to pick it up from the processor, and I got to, have it processed. So the rancher, farmer, my neighbor, whoever is raising cattle, he can't sell me cuts of beef unless he goes through a USDA inspected facility. If he goes to a custom processor, I can't buy, he can't sell it.
Right.
I will promise you from experience in the food industry, the food that my neighbor grows or the guy down the street grows, and he takes to that custom processor and it goes through a thing, or even if he's really gifted and he processes himself, has got in my mind and my opinion from being around it, has a much lower threshold. It has a much lower chance of having contamination or infection or E. coli or anything else because it's not in contact with other things that could create that. Whereas in an industrial food supply chain, it's in many hands touch it. It goes through many stations. It's hooked in all these things, and they use different things to clean. Not to mention the things they put in it to make sure it gets to the grocery store. Well,
what about chickens, for example? Okay. They're in these crowded facilities, and listen, I'm not just hammering on them because they feed a lot of people, but chickens are a good example of how crowded they are together with these other.
Right.
These
You
other
take,
chickens.
I will tell you, you take a commercial chicken house.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the house, that house will have somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 30 something thousand chickens in one house.
Right.
They are literally eating where they poop. They're sitting and they're drinking and they're eating where they poop. They're in a closed environment, no outside. The air is fanned, circulated, and it is what it is. But it's a petri dish waiting to happen. If you sat in a litter box,
right,
and ate dinner, you're probably going to get sick.
Right.
I mean, and then that's there. And then when it comes to a facility that's processing 100, 200, 300,000 birds a day. How many hands, how many stations, how many things is that going through? How much can the USDA really?
Right. How much can they really control? And you said something a little bit earlier in our earlier conversation about it takes so many cases of something before they will actually address it. Right.
Right. Yeah. The E. coli outbreak that recently affected McDonald's.
Okay.
How many people had to be affected? And in fact, people died before recall happened, before all these things happened. Excuse me. Where if a local producer, a local rancher, a local farm, and a local processor, they have a beef processed or a chicken for whatever, or a pig or whatever it is, and they get that back and they sell that to somebody and that person gets sick, they're calling that guy and he's calling that guy and they're going to figure it out, and change happens then, not later.
Right. And so some people might say, well, less USDA regulation means that a supplier out there, a producer of whatever product that they have, that they wouldn't be responsible with it. Okay. That's an argument that they say, we're here to protect people. Well, how much protection do we have from these larger companies? And by the way, if you're a person that says, man, I don't trust the local guy, I just don't trust that system, I'm more let the FDA and USDA, handle all of that. I feel safer when they're involved in it. Hey, I don't want to stand between you and your choice of where you eat. The problem is that between me and somebody I want to buy from, they're stopping me from making that choice as a consumer.
Right.
If I want to buy, let's say I want to buy something from Dwayne.
Right.
I am consenting to that.
Right.
So it's between two consenting people about what they want to put in their body. I trust Dwayne more than I don't even know anybody in those big processes,
Well, and here's the funny thing, right? that USDA inspector
Hmm.
has probably never, some of them have never raised an animal. They've never worked on a farm. They have no idea. They're
Trained
following a list.
bureaucrats.
They're following a list of regulations.
Yeah.
They're following a list of rules.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, I've watched USDA let a plant run all week and then turn around and shut it down on one day because something wasn't the way they wanted it, but it had been that way all week.
Wow.
Just a different inspector, just a different person working.
Yeah.
But you know, and you know, Red Dirt Rich Road, you're right about the dead carcasses. But you know, and Chris as well on the cramped spaces and that type of thing that go on. I mean, these are just the conditions of commercial food.
Right.
And I mean, as somebody who works around it every day, I see it.
Right.
And, you know, so I get it, you know, and, you know, folks read through the chat. There's definitely a lot of comments going back and forth that are really good. I will apologize for that little coughing fit. I am still fighting some allergy, sinus drainage, and
Might want to shout out to Dwayne.
I am because I'm right about this time. I would have been at home getting my hot nasty going on with some tincture.
Somehow that didn't sound like I
that
thought
didn't
it
sound
should.
right. That's not the farm to table. No, Dwayne Red Feather Farms tincture hot and nasty. I will tell you, the name is appropriate, but it does work. And as well as along with the fire cider, which I know Keith is a huge fan of.
Mhm. Yeah, I do.
We are a PG show, first off. All right, stop it over there.
Family friendly.
Second,
no,
I need to get some of that Dwayne himself, so.
But anyway, I can't take it, or I won't. I don't know about can't, won't. I won't take it in the mornings because I do drive for a living, and so putting something with a percentage of alcohol in it might put me in trouble. I don't know, so I wasn't taking a chance. So I didn't take it this morning. Took it last night, and I will take it when I get home. But in the meantime, it's cough drops and sweet tea. So
On a side note, I need to tell Dwayne I need some of that myself. So
what's that?
I need some of that hot nasty myself.
It works.
Hey, I love this point right here.
Okay, go
Mike
ahead.
Kent made. He said, "I'm surprised you can bring a dish to a social function that'll feed anybody."
Right.
At a
and
social
hands
function.
touch and everything else. Right.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can't buy meat from your neighbors.
I mean,
Right.
that really is it. You know, guys, that really is it. In a nutshell, it makes no sense. I should be able to buy something from somebody I know and trust,
Yeah, absolutely.
and we can have that relationship, and we can have that
Mhm.
exchange, and that's what it's going to take at the grassroots movement. Is people doing that, not breaking the law, just figuring out creative ways around it. I'll share the creative story since we're talking about beef and we're talking about this and we're talking about a lot of what Joel had to say at the conference. He sells beef. He raises beef. He raises cows. They sell beef along with chickens and everything. But okay, they were selling halves, quarters, wholes, whatever. People would buy them. They would transport them to the processor. And then
Mhm.
people pick them up. The standard operating procedure that's going on in a lot of places forever, or at least since the regulators got involved. Anyway, well, they get a phone call from the processor that there's crime scene tape around their beefs, and they can't process them. Well, the inspector shows up at his door. Anyway, he gets hold of his lawyer. Anyway, they get all this stuff. They sit down to have a meeting, and they're like, "Listen. This is what we've always done. We sell this, they're buying a live animal. I'm just taking it there, blah, blah, blah. I'm not, we're not breaking the rule with this." And the guy, that's when he found out, the regulation, the law didn't change, and Joel's operation didn't change. It was their interpretation changed.
That's right. Somebody in that office changed.
So a decision was changed.
Right.
So Joel finally just looked at the man, crossed his arms, and says, "If you were in my shoes, what would you do?" And he went stone cold silent and made him give him an answer. He said it took over 3 minutes before he got an answer. And the guy's like, "Well, I guess if you didn't charge you could sell the whole cow, charge for transportation." So
Right.
it was like, you don't, you're not selling it this way. You're just paying for transportation.
Right.
He said, thought about it. He said, "All right, I can do that." So that's what they started doing. Now, the funny thing is,
Yeah.
And this was what he was laughing was in their state, products are taxed, but services are not.
Right. Okay.
So the transportation of that cow
Right.
to the processor is a service,
Right.
not a product. So they're not selling product, they're providing a service. He said, so I started selling the cows for $1 for a whole, 50 cents for a half. He said, but that transportation cost is going to get you. Yeah.
And absolutely no taxes.
No. Oh, and that's
well,
and,
very little
very
taxes.
little. He said they
at
went
all.
from cost of a whole cost of buying a whole cow is pretty expensive. I mean, those of you who've done it,
right.
He said I was paying tax on this. Now I'm paying pennies in taxes.
Right. And so I'm going to bring us back full circle. Circumvention. So this is what it meant: crucible of circumvention. In other words, you got to be willing to, take the heat in the crucible,
Right.
and be willing to be bold enough to do these things. Which he's had many stories about how he has faced
Right.
regulators, and he had made a decision a long time ago about that he was going to commit to this,
Right.
and that this is a food freedom thing,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And that's why they called him. Let's see, what was the part of what they called him? That they were the bad boys of food.
Oh yeah, bad boys of food.
Yeah, and so this is where the Rogue part of Rogue Food Conference comes in,
Right.
and so in order to have those rights, we have to come up with not creative ways to break laws.
No,
We're not interested in breaking
Work
laws.
within it.
But working around it, doing workarounds so that we can legally sell to one another.
Right.
But what would be better? And by the way, this is going back to the question from Chris Reeves, which
Right.
was, do I think that Joel Salatin, being, involved with that will be effective? Yes, I do.
Well, because he's smart man, he's an educated man, and he's got a lot of years of doing this.
That's right.
He brings a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And, one of the things he's brought up, and I don't know, I wasn't aware of this. I didn't know anything about it until he mentioned it. It's called the PRIME Act, PRIME. And there's that's actually an acronym, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's a big long, big long thing. But basically, at its nutshell core is that it sends back to the states
Mm-hmm.
to as far as food processing on a local, at the local level, i.e., he can take that. A guy can go to raise a beef if the state permits, the state regulates. They can raise a beef, have it processed, sell it by the cut, intrastate only,
Right.
which
within
is
each state. Right.
yeah. He's got
Processing, revival, and interstate meat
processing, revival, intrastate meat
exemption.
exemption.
Okay.
So it gives them an exemption to, and Thomas Massey was the one co-author of this legislation. It's been fighting for it for a couple of years now. But basically, it allows them to be exempt. So now, John the farmer or rancher can raise a cow, take it down to a local processor, which is probably more convenient to his location than finding a USDA inspected facility. Oftentimes that's hours or miles of travel. He gets it processed in by the cuts, and he can now sell that in the state he's in, not across state lines, all this stuff, but in the state he's in
Right.
by the cut. So he can now sell to his community. He can sell to his neighbors. He can sell to local businesses, local restaurants, any of that stuff in state,
Mm-hmm.
which gives people way more choices. It reduces down that farmer's overhead, that rancher's overhead with transportation costs and things of that nature. And oh, by the way, now it lets him compete against the big. He now is competitive. He can now be competitive.
Right. And, at the other end of that is if we can bring these things back local, and
Right.
if we have the choice of local, then it goes to food security
Right.
for me and my family and my neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes to what, I don't know if you can highlight that, Rose, Chris's comment there about the consolidation of food industries into just 10 or 12 companies. He was talking about you get one corrupt corporation that cuts corners, it affects many food sources, and that's absolutely correct. But the consolidation of that is a huge part of that, and and it's so yeah. If control is consolidated, you and I lose choice, we lose freedom because we're only if all you can eat is what they give you, well then what you going to eat? Dwayne just put a comment down there that his processing fee has doubled in the last year. I mean,
Right. And I'd like to know why you think that is. If you can type that over in the comments, I'd like to know
why you think it has doubled.
It's doubled. Is it a demand thing, or is it a cost thing, or just inflation overall? I'm not sure. But anyway, just leave that over there, Dwayne, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
But I mean, man, there's so many good comments up there, but I mean, it really is about food freedom. And that's what the conference was about. And, I mentioned having conviction as those being a driving force.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have the convictions, that we profess, if we're not willing to stand firm, in a climate that is polarizing, that is against us, the system seems to be against us, then, we're not going to survive. And some of the comments up there was about the neighbors helping each other, about time that we have to, be the change, stand, together.
Yeah.
And all of those things are very, very true because that's where it happens. And I mean, we'll get into more of these stories over the coming, when we get further into this with other episodes. But there were stories, I mean, where people were in that situation where they were literally about to lose their business. And neighbors, friends, community came together and came up with a solution that helped them all, and they all benefited from, and I mean, and that's really where it's at. And, and I don't want to get too far into John and Jeff and them, the guys that were there at their stuff, because I want to save something for that night, but
right. And we will, it gets
there's so much more.
There is so much more to that, but I wanted to ask this question that was down here. Is what separates fleeting resistance from true transformation? And now I'll also read the answer to that.
Right.
And that is, it's the unwavering conviction to preserve even against, or I would say in spite of insurmountable odds.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that without conviction,
right,
and that determination. And I mean, we've hey, Money Pit, yep, you got to understand, and we will see you later, and have a great evening, bud. Go get you some rest. And
hopefully you can join us next week, because we're going to be talking about a different kind of food, and that's the food we put in our minds.
Absolutely.
We'll get to that in a little bit, but
absolutely.
But I hope you guys can come back for that part.
Anyway, and Red Dirt, that's concerning about processing. They have 2 steers going to processor at the end of December. My suggestion, I mean, I've only done a little bit. Most of my processing has been wild game processing, but my thing is, Monty, Michelle, get with your processor and get a price locked. Don't let the
that's a good idea.
See about getting a price lock. That way, now, what you're paying. That way you're not getting, surprised at the end,
That's right. And so, bro, we are about 48 minutes in, so I want to do, so now for those of you who came in just a little bit late, you probably missed it.
You might have missed the opening,
but we have a little jingle
and
here.
Money Pitch, you missed it, but you'll love it when you go back and listen if you didn't catch it.
Right. So, Mr. P, can you
just
rewind that and
just hit that opening on that a little
let's go through that one more time. You guys.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hit it, man.
Let's hit it. Raw.
Bring gifts to the FDA.
Raw.
errands.
Right. Everybody join in.
Yes, to the FDA.
Raw. Okay. Let's cut that.
Well, anyway, now you see how we started the show. If you were here in the
In case you
beginning,
weren't here, and what did that song have to do with this final little story?
what did it have to do with the Rogue Food Conference? Well,
Oh, no.
not getting sound choppy. Oh no,
No,
that's not good.
good.
That was too much.
No
but-
bueno.
Anyway, the song "Milk and Cookies" is funny. John Moody shared a story,
Mhm.
and it kind of puts you into the mind of him and Joel Salatin and others of their friends and their close, about 500 of their closest friends.
A crazy place to be.
About 500 of their closest friends decided to stage a ultra friendly
Mhm.
protest.
Peaceful, very
Peaceful, very peaceful. I mean,
Yeah.
they brought raw milk and,
And
cookies. I mean, you can't get more peaceful than milk and cookies.
Where did they take it?
They took it to the front gates of the FDA.
Of the FDA.
Yes.
Well,
Which-
not only did they do that,
they invited the FDA. They told them they were coming
on many occasions
on several
before
weeks
they ever
before
did
they
it.
ever got there.
They called them regular basis
Regular basis to let
and
them know.
invite them to come down
For
for
milk,
raw
milk.
milk
and
and
cookies.
cookies. So
Oh man, they didn't catch it on their end. Okay.
sorry about that, guys.
YouTube Milk and Cookies children's song, and
Children's
you'll
song,
find it.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they organized this, and
Right.
they go. Now, I've not been there, but they say that from the gates of the front gates of the FDA back to the main building is about a half mile. So it's a pretty long driveway back in the
Mhm.
woods. It's hidden, kind of thing in the trees of the area around DC somewhere there. So anyway, they go up there. They gather up at the gates,
Mhm.
and they brought raw milk and
Cookies.
cookies. And I
Right.
do believe they said they were gluten-free cookies at that.
Oh,
So I mean,
even better.
even
Right.
better, right? So they do all this, and the welcoming committee from the FDA was a line of silver government sedans
Uh-huh.
and another line beside it of local sheriff and police department vehicles.
So what you're saying is they wanted raw milk and cookies.
Well, apparently they wouldn't take any.
Oh.
I think they were not sure this was going to be a completely peaceful protest.
I would line up for raw milk and
But
cookies.
they had
though,
milk.
wouldn't
I
you?
mean, raw milk and cookies.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Right.
Now, we never heard what the outcome of that was,
I'll
but
have to ask Joel the next time.
but
we
they
see
are
him,
walking
or
around three
John.
men today. I mean, they were in Dallas, Texas. I mean, they're traveling. Some of us have seen them at
Yeah,
conferences.
they're not in
or,
prison.
yeah, they're not in prison. I mean, it might be
Yeah.
on parole. So I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
they could be walking around on parole.
No, we don't really. They
I didn't
give us.
notice any ankle bracelets. or
Yeah,
anything.
no, and they didn't give us a date of when this happened. So it could have already
Yeah.
been time served. I don't know.
Right.
Just kidding. But no, they did that as a peaceful protest to show the absurdity, really, I think, of
Mhm.
of this thing with raw milk. And we live in a country that tells us that raw milk and homegrown vegetables and homegrown eggs and homegrown everything is bad for you and dangerous and deadly, but
Right.
highly toxic, highly chemicalized, highly processed foods and drinks filled with words we can't even pronounce
Mhm.
are somehow healthy for us.
Right.
And so that was the whole thing. There was that standing up to that and showing the absurdity of that.
Well, we've survived, all the way up until the Industrial Revolution,
Right. Well,
and all of these things, including the food pyramid, that's not ancient,
no.
and it's not right.
Oh, by the way, the food pyramid, 1979.
Think about that for just a minute.
1979. So you're talking 45 years.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, it's updated every 5 years,
Mhm.
and it's up for research redoing now. And the University of Professor, I think it's Stanford, I think is who's doing it, but they've got this thing all whacked out again. And now they've got vegetables and nuts and stuff like that ahead of beef and proteins and things like that. And their thing is plant forward, So, that's what they have in their mind as the food pyramid. So,
Right.
When statements were made that the nutrition department was the first department of the FDA that was getting the
Getting the
Doge,
boot.
getting the
The
Doge,
Doge.
I
Yeah.
I kind of chuckle because I understand that. But the yeah, I mean that's where we're at, and so I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure that the tomatoes I've grown in my backyard tasted better than anything I bought in the store shelf. Now, farm hubs may be the exception. So, yeah, Dwayne, Beyond Meat will be on the top.
Yeah. Not if we have anything to do with
Not
it.
if we can help it. Yeah. The Impossible Whopper isn't happening for me. I'm
Yeah, it's
sorry.
impossible.
Yeah. But, so I mean, that's just kind of where that was the opening. I mean, listen, we shared some stories from further in the conference, but these three, these points we were talking about tonight about the crucible, about using circumvention,
Yeah.
about conviction, about standing up, folks, that was the opening salvo of Saturday.
Yeah.
We haven't even dug in really to the rest of everything we had that Saturday. It was an intense amount of information and delivered in great ways. I took several pages of notes, and so I mean, there's nothing that we can say that'll replace being there. I'll promise.
Right.
But I mean, if you ever get a chance to go sit down in one of those.
I think their next one is going to be in Florida.
That's what I seen was in
Yeah.
Florida coming up in 25, I think the spring.
Right.
But anyway, go to Road Food Conference. I mean, you can go out and Google it. Go to Road Food Conference. You can find out information about them, where they're going to be. You can sign up, become a member, all that stuff. And let's see. He said, I've been running scientific. Now, is that scientific research there, Dwayne, or is that
I believe that that's what
Yeah.
what he's talking
I mean,
about. Yeah.
yeah.
Can you bring that up on screen over there? Can you share
Yeah.
the Rogue Food Conference page?
let me see. Yeah, the page, because that's the one we just went to.
Right.
But they haven't got 2025 completely up yet. But yeah. Okay, he's working on it.
Working there. It is a-
There we
Yeah.
go. Oh, on developing plant into a meat product. I'm concerned for you. What happened to my friend Dwayne? Yeah, there's some of the stuff. That's some of the vendors. Homesteaders of America, several others. The founders, of course, Joel Salatin.
GOAT. He
Yeah,
says.
the goat. That's it. Oh, goat.
Okay, tell me
Uh,
what that means. The GOAT is that
Goat meat, crazy whole thing. So,
the
greatest
goat
of all times.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. I call it goat, greatest of all time.
Right.
I love it. It's great.
I'm sold on goat.
There we go.
Yeah.
But no, folks, listen. Like I said, organizations that are out here like this, that are out here, it's just promoting. I mean, it's they call it Rogue Food Conference for a reason. It is about doing things a little bit rogue, if
Right.
you will. It's about thinking
Right.
outside the box. It's about but it's about equipping people too. And I mean, like I said, it was great information. And yes, Monty, Michelle, give them a chance to check that out. And I mean, listen, I would even say go over to Polyface Farm and sign up for Joel's blogs. He puts them
Right.
out several times a week, and
Yep.
it keeps a lot of things up to date. I mean, I've been getting them. I look forward to them.
Actually, they do have some stuff listed for 2025.
You have what? Oh, they do have
So
something.
Rogue Food Health and Wellness. This small free event will be held at a beautiful 65-acre permaculture farm an hour outside of Orlando, Florida.
Okay, so Rogue Food Health and Wellness, March 13th to the 15th. I know a lot of us will be going.
That's 25th.
That's
I mean, that's in 25.
2025.
Yeah.
And that'll be
Now they got one in December.
now
I
they
believe.
got one in the summer, which is Rogue Finance.
Yeah.
Loan request. Anyway, that's more fun. And then September 25th, Rogue Food, Aberlin Springs, Ohio. I will tell you, Agri Hood or Agri Community is something that was talked about there. We got to hear from the lady who owns, founded, created, helped co-create whatever Aberlin Springs. It's a Agri Hood. It's the only
Agri-Hood.
HOA I've heard of that might actually
allow you to get away with growing food.
might actually allow
and-
you to make sense. Well,
Yeah,
they've got
a lot
a.
of
It's
stuff.
we'll get into it later. But you currently have 80 experience. All right, Chris. Yeah, we're about to get out of here ourselves,
Yeah.
buddy. Have a great and blessed week, Chris. I hope things are going to continue to go well for you guys up there, and look forward to seeing you and visiting with you more.
I didn't know Dwayne was a mad scientist.
Well, he's got 84-legged experiments running around up there. You know,
Right.
And this is supposed to be Dwayne's season of rest too.
Yeah,
you know,
that didn't sound like a rest to me.
So this man go rest? Oh, he does not.
but anyway,
Talking about from the circuit.
so yeah, that's what this is about. But listen, I guess we need to kind of get out of this.
Yeah, we do. But before we get out of it, one of the things I want to do is just kind of tease a little bit about next
Right.
week. And,
Absolutely. We
it's
do-
going to be Holly Hickman.
Yeah.
What can you say about Holly Hickman?
wow, so impressive, knowledge wise.
Right. Now, who is she? What did
well,
she do?
Holly Hickman is former, I believe.
Mhm.
She is a homesteader, mother, wife. She works with School of Service. Cultivates.com is something she works with, and I think it's School of Traditional Skills is another one she works with. But she
Right.
puts out videos. Holly Hickman, but she post 9/11 became a reporter. Worked for Fox News. She's worked for ABC. She did story writing. She's done reporting. She's
Worked
done,
for Roger Ailes.
worked for Roger Ailes.
He, I think she said she worked alongside Peter Jennings.
Peter Jennings was
And
who
for-
that was
I
her
know
hero.
some of you guys out there remember Peter Jennings.
Yeah, and
Right.
so but she left the business because of the direction
Right.
that she's seen things going.
Right.
And but anyway, she gives us a real. She gave a history of the press.
Yeah.
and all the way through from the original newspapers to the 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
But she gave a lot of information about how they think, about the words, phrasing they use, and key phrases you can look for, had to understand what they're saying and why the changes. There was just so much information, but
Yeah.
she is a great
Right.
speaker for one. I mean, as somebody who was in the media,
So what would be a good way to tease it? Fail.
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 we're going to learn how to fail.
We're going to learn how to fail.
We're going to learn how to fail.
So stay tuned next week, guys. Stay
Yeah.
tuned next week because we're going to teach you how to fail.
We're going to teach
All
you all
right.
about failing or fail. We're going to teach you all about it. It does actually. I mean,
Fail.
Fail.
Right.
That's
So,
it. So that's next week, and we're gonna. It's gonna be. Trust me, it's. When I first heard there was a media person, I mean, we're in media, so we were interested, but
mhm.
I didn't really know what it was going to be, and I was very surprised at how relevant it was to what we do in homesteading and what the community is and what
Right.
and what the messaging that you and the person next to you that's a skeptic that doesn't believe in all this. I mean, why they believe the way they believe, why they've been influenced the way they've been influenced. And
Right.
so, I mean, that's
So whenever we were talking to her afterwards,
yeah.
I told her it was a shocking thing. She said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Poto, Oklahoma." She said, "I know where that's at." And
that
I'm like,
was
"What?"
surprising. That was very
Wait a minute. You know where Podunk, Oklahoma's at?
Right, exactly. You know where the middle of nowhere is.
Yeah. So anyway,
And,
stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and wrap this up and let
Right.
people get out of
well,
here.
right. And Dwayne,
and-
listen, it's our pleasure, and thank you for being a supporter of this. Thank you for jumping in with us and
Yeah.
sharing your wisdom and your experience with us on so many things. And it's we appreciate each and every person that came into the chat tonight, came on, watched. Anybody's going to watch it after. We could sit out here and do this without y'all guys, but man, it's a whole lot more fun when you're with us.
I'm
And-
wanting to hit him up to that hot nasty. At some
Oh,
point, so.
yeah. So I've got the contact
A
information.
little plug for Hot and
Uh,
Nasty.
Hey, listen, Monty, Michelle, y'all
Thank
take
you.
care as well. Definitely make that phone call tomorrow to your processor. And I will get better. I'll get well. I'm going to continue with the treatment from Dr. Dwayne. And
And if anybody's within the sound of my voice, both Hot and Nasty, and I haven't had that yet,
it's accurate.
it's the real deal.
It's the real deal.
And so if you guys want to get a hold of some of that, reach out to
Red
Dwayne
Feather-
at
Red
Red
Feather
Feather
Farms.
Farms.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I also want to tell you, Dwayne, I really like fire cider.
Yep.
No, I don't even mean I can handle it.
He's trying to figure out.
I could put it on a salad.
He likes it.
That's how much I like it.
I tolerate it. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a tolerance.
You're not a vinegar guy.
I'm not a vinegar guy.
But man, I loved it.
but
And
now-
I'm looking forward to every morning.
But now-
I'm not
but now
hating
that-
the thought
that-
I got to do it either.
that 40% grain alcohol now we're having my conversation. But
See, I got to try that next.
and the cayenne that goes with it.
Right
But,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
So let's
anyway,
get out of here,
um,
man.
Yeah, let's do it. Folks, America's at a crossroads. And we really got to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to pass the test? Or are we going to be consumed by fire? And it's up to each and every one of us to be involved, to be active, get informed, make educated decisions, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. And so get active and get involved. And we'll talk more about that as well. Well, if you haven't already, or as you're watching, hit the like, hit the share, hit subscribe, hit follow, and all those great and wonderful things. That helps us get the word out to more and more people. It helps us reach out, and it helps us kick the algorithm's tail end a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, I had lost my train of thought. I read a comment. Shouldn't have done that. But listen, as we say, hashtag we're stronger together.
Right.
We are. It takes the whole community. It takes us all working together. It takes us standing together. We've recently seen what can happen when the American people stand up and make their voice heard.
That's right. Don't
and,
forget that.
and we have the power. Consolidate. We have the funding, and we have the power to be the innovation for change.
Yeah.
And so keep that. And as you go out through this week, make it a point, be a blessing to somebody, even if it's just a smile. As always, here on the Farm to Table Direct Show, prepare for the unexpected and keep it local.